Now, I hope that's not a reflection of how you really feel about yourself. I said, give yourselves a great big. Yes, that's much better. That's much better. I'm Alicia Scott Ford. I'm the field office director in the Jacksonville HUD office. And with me from Atlanta, Regional Administrator Jose Alvarez. Let's show him some love. So we're going to go ahead and move forward with our agenda, and I'm going to turn it over to Nancy for her opening remarks, and we'll just go from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. I really want to thank you for taking your time, for being here today to learn more about the opportunities that we have through our partnership with the federal government. Today, I'm honored to present to you first our host for this event, Julie Matthews. She's the Chief Operating Officer of the National Entrepreneur Center. Julie Matthews has over 2 decades of experience in small business development and business incubation. She has achieved success in a variety of roles at the University of Florida and the National Entrepreneur Center, including as interim director in 2006 and recently appointed Chief Operating Officer. Her background includes facility operations, network administration, disaster response management, business development, human resources management, fiscal administration, event management, grant management, client relations, and program coordination. And she's here to offer some welcome remarks.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. On behalf of our CEO and our executive board, we welcome you to the National Entrepreneur Center. I'd like to thank Jose Alvarez, the regional administrator, for being here today and bringing this program to our center, in conjunction with Mayor Jerry Demings and Dr. Alicia Scott with HUD. The National Entrepreneur Center, just briefly, is a true public-private partnership that provides one-stop business support services. We do this through 18 resource partners. They call the NEC home. We provide free one-on-one business coaching, quality business education, ample networking opportunities through our various chambers and membership organizations, and most importantly, access to capital. The center has 2 service lines itself: the Central Florida International Trade Office that helps companies think globally and navigate the maze of import and export assistance. We also have a program called BizLink Orange, and it's something that we launched a little over a year ago with the vision of Mayor Jerry Demings and his economic development team. BizLink Orange is our online connection platform where entrepreneurs can have an opportunity to connect with over 86 entrepreneurial support organizations across a 6-county region. So we are very blessed to have that resource tool in our toolkit. You can provide a variety of how-to guides as well as a regional connections calendar. So be sure to check out bizlinkorange.com. Today we're here to talk about federal, state, and local contracting opportunities. And one of the valuable resources that's offered here at the National Entrepreneur Center through the Small Business Development Center is our Procurement Technical Assistance Office. These are specialized coaches that can help you navigate that government contracting maze sometimes. It can be a little complicated when you're kind of answering those RFPs. So we have dedicated staff through the Small Business Development Center that can help you gain access to those bid opportunities as well as put together your winning RFP. So please check out our PTAC operations. We have an anniversary event coming up on May 24th. The NEC is celebrating its 20th anniversary with the Connections 2.0. It is going to provide business owners with an opportunity to connect using technology in a more efficient and quick way. We're also going to have a business RX where you can sit down and meet with business coaching right there on site, as well as a commercial pitch competition at a chance to win 2 round-trip tickets anywhere Southwest flies, and that does include Hawaii, so definitely check that out. We'll have some more information on Connections 2.0 in the back of the room as you're exiting. So I just want to thank you for coming here today. We're going to work through some of this technology issues. I understand we have some people presenting remotely, so we'll go ahead and move forward with the program and while we try to get this online for you. Thank you.
Wrong notebook. I'm very honored to introduce to you our Orange County Mayor, Jerry Demings. Jerry Demings is the first African American to serve in the role of Orange County Mayor. He oversees over 8,000 employees, and that's including me. Okay, and something I want to say about my mayor and my boss is that he really cares about economic development, housing. We share the same mission, and a lot of the goals that our U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development has, and we have a very strong partnership that goes back to many years. So thank you, Mayor, for being here today.
All right, thank you, thank you. Let me just say good afternoon to all of you. I want to start this, and also let me do some recognitions formally. The Honorable Congressman Maxwell Frost was here earlier. I'm not sure if he was able to stay, but his staff, what I said to him since taking office, his staff is everywhere, and so we enjoy the wonderful partnership that we have between the county and our federal partners. And let me also make certain that I do welcome, I'm going to call him Mayor, since he was the Honorable Mayor of the city of Kissimmee, Mr. Jose Alvarez, who is currently serving as the regional administrator, as you've heard now, for HUD. We welcome here to the area. And we also welcome Dr. Alicia Scott Ford. She is a Floridian from my wife's hometown of Jacksonville, Florida. We welcome her here as well. We are glad that they're here because as they entered today, one of the things they said that we were going to ask them for something. We were going to ask them for money. And I said to Mayor Alvarez, yes, usually it's the other way around. Whenever I go places, they're always asking me for money. But we like the partnership that we have with HUD. I'm going to talk more about that partnership in just a moment. But let me take the time to also introduce some of the members of my staff. My chief of staff is here. Miss Roseanne Harrington is over there. Roseanne, I think, there she is. And from our business development office, we also have Ms. Martha Lee Irizarry. She's relatively new in that position, but she's been with Orange County a long period of time. And then, of course, we have from our Housing and Community Development Division, Mr. Mitchell Glasser. Mitchell is there as well. If you want to know something about housing in Orange County, if you call me, I'm going to ultimately refer you to Mitchell Glasser because he is the subject matter expert for us at Orange County government. One of the things that we are so proud of is that the Small Disadvantaged Business Outreach and Training event that we're at today marks the beginning of the National Community Development Week celebration, which takes place from the dates of April 11th through April 15th. We're proud to have this long-standing partnership with HUD that goes back many, many decades. And most recently, it has been really important because of the impact that we have experienced from the housing crisis here within our community to events centered around the various storms that have impacted our residents. We do appreciate your partnership. Orange County received its first Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG award, in 1975. That was a good year. Orange County and HUD share a common vision to advance affordable housing opportunities and to develop sustainable communities where everyone can grow and thrive. Being a melting pot, a community that is growing in terms of diversity and migration into our community. Our county, Orange County, grew by a net of 25% in the last decade. We are now over 1.5 million people in our county. We're the 5th largest county within the state of Florida, and probably in the not too distant future, the next 12 to 18 months, we'll move to number 4. We'll surpass Hillsborough County in terms of total population within our county. That means that housing is going to be a big issue for us going forward. As a recipient of federal CDBG funds, the Orange County Housing Community Development Division receives more than $10 million from HUD annually to address Dr. Scott Ford's, and that deserves a round of applause. Okay. I'm allowing them to catch up with their technology, and then before I get the hook, the construction of public facilities like health clinics and community centers, housing rehabilitation services for low-income homeowners, and land acquisition for affordable housing development are just a few of the many activities that Orange County performs each year with the participation of federal CDBG dollars. Last year alone, 69 new homes were created in Orange County through this grant, not to mention the overall impact that the program has on our quality of life. Grant funding assisted over 2,100 households with rental assistance. 1,200 homeless persons were sheltered in our county, and more than 2,200 individuals were served with social service needs. The federal and local programs discussed today provide opportunities for many small businesses to participate in procuring goods and services, which supports our workforce development and economic growth. We want all of our residents to participate in the broad-based prosperity of our community. With that, with 3 things, I think I'm out of time. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Mayor, for being here today. We know how busy your schedule was. Thank you so much. We have a special guest that is not a stranger to our community. Mr. Jose Alvarado, welcome. He is the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Administrator for Region 4, which Orange County reports to. Mr. Alvarado was appointed by President Biden to serve as U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Regional Administrator for the Southeast, serving Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, North Carolina, Puerto Rico, South Carolina, Tennessee, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. As Regional Administrator, Mr. Alvarez serves as HUD's liaisons to mayors, city managers, elected representatives, state and local officials, congressional delegations, stakeholders, and customers. He is responsible for overseeing the delivery of HUD programs and services to communities and evaluate their efficiency and effectiveness. In 2012, Mr. Alvarez was elected to the Kissimmee City Commission, where he championed diversified economic growth, affordable housing and homelessness initiatives, sustainable environmental policies, and fair labor practices. And in 2012, he was elected to serve as City of Kissimmee mayor, becoming its first Hispanic mayor. We welcome here Mr. Alvarado.
Good afternoon. So my name is Jose Alvarez, not Alvarado. But I know there's some other Alvarado outside. Like she said, I'm the HUD Region Administrator for Region 4. It is the largest region in the nation. We oversee 10 states, Kansas to Florida, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. So it keeps me busy as I do my work. But Alicia knows how to get me back home. This is home for me. Central Florida is home. And so I always enjoyed coming home. Mayor Demings, thank you so much for inviting us here. I've known Mayor Demings for quite a while. We served in many committees together. Today I rode on the I-4 expansion, and we were there from the conception of it. And so today was the first time that I was able to drive on the expansion, and it felt good. So it's always good when they take me out of Atlanta, but it's always great when they bring me back home to Florida. We're here today to help ensure that small businesses, minority businesses, and women-owned businesses, as well as service-disabled, veteran-owned small businesses, are aware of the contracting opportunities available that results from funds the department grants to state and local governments, agencies, and public housing authorities. You know, I want to put this conception aside where people only think of HUD as affordable housing, Section 8 vouchers, right? We do so much more than that. And so helping small businesses is a big priority for HUD. And we are involved heavily into that. I was actually volunteer, because, you know, in government, we always get volunteer. Secretary has several charters. And so I was asked to serve as the lead for the Small Business Disadvantage Charter for the nation. And so we have the charter has been running since last year. And so when I sat with the staff, because those are the brain, right? So we just come around and wave, and our staff are unbelievable. So when the staff, we were talking and we said, small business is so broad, right? How can we choose something particular that we could make a difference, right? Because, you know, I'm a big believer. I'm a small business owner myself. I'm a real estate broker by trade for over 25 years and own 5 real estate offices. And so what do you do to be successful, right? So you go one step at a time. So in Small Business Disadvantage, there was so broad. There were so many things that we could work on. But what can we do to make a difference now? So we chose lead-based paint. So we went and we sat with EPA and we started finding out why aren't that many minorities as business owners for lead-based. And we started finding out that the cost of the licenses, the training were so high, they could not afford to go into that business. But then we find out there's over $700 million just sitting there unused on contracts for lead-based. So we partnered with EPA, and EPA was very happy that we contacted them to partner with them. And I tell you what, out of that funding, you could get your license, you could get your training. So it's included. So what we're doing nationwide is we're doing events in areas that we know they have a lot of issues with lead-based, and to trying to help small businesses get into that type of business. So this is what is completing something as we finish. When the term is over, I know whoever comes behind me is going to have that charter there. It's going to pick it up and say, okay, what do we do next to accomplish and be successful? So you got to do one step at a time. So that's what we're doing right now. Nationwide, these agencies received up to $10 billion in funds annually, which may subsequently contract out. You will hear today about Section 3. Section 3 contributes to the establishment of stronger, more sustainable communities by ensuring that employment and other economic opportunities generated by the federal financial assistance for housing and community development programs are, to the greatest extent feasible, directed towards low and very low income persons, particularly those who receive government assistance for housing. So Section 3 is any contractor that's doing any properties with HUD funding. Section 3 is included to create opportunities to create small businesses and help people get into the trades. So we started in construction. There's different type of work that can be done. We actually have developers that have created courses in property management. So these are people that live in the community and now they're property managing and they're managing communities. So we just took them from being in poverty and we gave them an opportunity. We lifted them off the ground as we housed them. We also gave them that opportunity that they can own a small business. They can be successful in life themselves. Section 3 standards are race and gender neutral. The standards provided under this regulation are based on income level and location. Each year, HUD invests billions of dollars, of federal dollars, into distressed communities across the country for projects. Projects include building and rehabilitation housing, improving a variety of infrastructures, building community centers, helping families achieve civility and advancement. The Section 3 program requires recipients of HUD funding to direct employment, training, and contracting opportunities to low-income individuals and the businesses that deploy these persons within their community. Same thing I said. Sometimes I go ahead of the speeches they give me to make because I'm involved in it. We're involved in it every single day, and we're working on this. Many HUD programs include provisions from compliance with federal labor provisions, including the payment of federal prevailing wage rates on covered projects. HUD Davis-Bacon and Labor Standards staff ensures that construction laborers and mechanics working on covered projects are paid no less than the federal prevailing wage rate for the type of work they perform. There are similar requirements for laborers and mechanics performing maintenance work for public and Indian housing agencies. In addition to these responsibilities, DBLS staff works to support employment and apprenticeship initiatives and frequently provides training seminars about federal labor standards and HUD programs. Our team from HUD and Department of Labor would like to provide you with the tools and information needed to make business decisions when contracting with the federal government or with projects funded by the federal government. From contracting to housing, ending discrimination is a priority. HUD and the administration are committed to taking action to realize the full promise of Fair Housing Act. On a final note, this month we commemorate the 55th anniversary of the Fair Housing Act. The landmark civil rights law promoted by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and signed by President Lyndon B. Johnson on April 11, 1968, making discrimination in housing transaction unlawful. 55 years later, the Fair Housing Act still serves as an important tool for ensuring justice and dignity in our housing system. It guarantees all people have the right to obtain housing of their choice, regardless of their race, color, national origin, religion, sex, familiar status, and disability. We hope the information you will obtain here today from our local partners will be very helpful to you. Before I stop speaking, I want to appreciate and thank our staff here, our team from HUD, from the Jacksonville office. So in Florida, we have 2 field offices. The Jacksonville office covers the largest section of Florida. Our field office director, Dr. Alicia Scott, which is wonderful. My wife loves her, by the way, because she's the one that gets me back to Florida all the time. And we have part of our team here from HUD. We have Deidre Carey and Jenna Shinsky. Thank you so much for being here today. So again, Mayor, thank you so much for having me. I think today is going to be a great event, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you're going to learn and also hear your comments, because that's how we improve ourselves. So again, thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoy.
Mr. Alvarez, I hope we don't get penalized in our next grant funding for mispronouncing your name. I'm so sorry. Okay. Next, we have Dr. Alicia Scott Ford, our field office director here at the HUD Jacksonville office. Dr. Scott Ford has been with HUD for over 23 years. Prior to her appointment as field office director, she served as the director of multifamily project management with responsibility for asset management and responsibility for the asset management and development for the state of Florida. In addition, she previously served as a community builder in the northern Florida. She was also a mortgage credit analyst for 10 years with HUD. In addition to federal government service, Dr. Scott Ford has served as the founder and executive director of 3 community-based organizations in Tampa and Jacksonville, vice president for grants at the University of South Florida, owned a consulting firm, was a professor of gerontology at the University of South Florida, and later was the founding chair of the gerontology department at Edward Waters College in Jacksonville. Dr. Scott graduated from the University of Florida with a degree in religion and a minor in chemistry. She completed her graduate education at Atlanta University, studying sociology with a concentration in gerontology, and obtained a PhD from the University of South Florida in applied anthropology with a specialization in gerontology, the first African American in the United States with a PhD in this application. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon again. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, and thank you so much, R.A. Alvarez, for that wonderful presentation about HUD. I won't be before you long. I just kind of want to give you some general information about HUD and what we do, and I think based on this audience, I'm just kind of going to skip the slides for the most part, because I kind of want to get a feel for who's in the room, what we can do, what kind of information you're expecting. So what kind of businesses, just raise your hand, just yell out, just what kind of businesses are in the room this afternoon? Air conditioning, roofing, building, roofing, real estate, architectural, general. So who are you? Okay, so are you doing business with HUD now? Okay, through the county. Okay, yes, absolutely. Through our cities and through our counties. What I like to share with most people is that, just like our RA mentioned, most people don't understand what we do at HUD. Most people automatically think that HUD is low-income housing and that's it. We do all types of housing. We do risk management. We do market rate. We do seniors, disabled. Not only do we do housing, but we also have money in economic development. I always tell people there is no place in society that HUD money cannot go. How is that possible? Because HUD money can go into a 108 loan. And as long as it creates jobs, you can be a funeral home, you could be a barbecue sauce company, you can be a nail company that creates jobs. Anything where HUD money can go can be generated through a 108 loan. And I don't want to get too much into that, but my motto is HUD means more than housing. We do a lot of different things. And part of what I do in field policy and management is that I go around and tell communities just like you what HUD is, what you can do with HUD, how you can connect with HUD, and how you can get with your local government, your local elected officials, your local housing directors to obtain an opportunity to do business with through the city and the counties through HUD dollars. I know the mayor is going to love this, and I see Mitchell back there. They're going to love this because now you're going to be bombarded with all kind of people calling you about. So how do you do it? you could do it through Section 3. We're going to have a much more detailed presentation on Section 3, but it's so important because Section 3 dollars are available for our residents or people that live in our municipalities, in our general communities that want to do business with HUD. So you can be a minority business entrepreneur, or you can also do business with HUD through Section 3. Okay. The regional administrator outlined what areas we cover. I cover the whole state in specific areas. I cover the whole state for multifamily. I cover the whole state for fair housing, single family. But there's a smaller office in Miami that covers the green area. So if you're in the orange area, that falls under the Jacksonville HUD office. And we are very, very busy. Just kind of want to highlight a few things because we're already behind on time. I want to highlight a couple of things about what we do. We are, in field policy management, we are the face of the secretary. We interact, we're the boots on the ground, we're the people, we're the eyes and ears of what your concerns are. We have Deidre here, Deidre Carey, who has been the primary coordinator for this event. Let's give her a round of applause. She still has hair and it still is black. And then Janae in our office as well has been instrumental. So we are here to be a help, an assistance to you. We are here to hear what your concerns are. We are here to just kind of get an idea of how we can work together, better, how we can partner, and how we can assist you reach your goals. We are partners. We have another person in our office who's not here, who wasn't feeling well, and that's Chantrell Brown. So we're here basically to help you and to keep you informed about what's going on. Next slide. I don't want to go through all of them. Just want to go to the next one. Just kind of want to share too. Like I said, HUD has 8 major programs. So we're not just housing. We have counseling. We have community planning and development. We have our Office of Legal Counsel, and we have a hospital program. How many of you know that HUD builds and develops hospitals? How many? Just by a show of hands. Nobody. So that's what I'm saying. We're here to make the information and the good work that we're doing available to you so you'll know what we're doing. Even when we're developing hospitals, there's many subcontractors or contractors in here that can help in that process. Now, I just wanted to share a couple of things that our secretary has been very, very involved in and engaged in. One is House America. In fact, Orange County is a part. Let's give Orange County. They're a part of our House America program where we are committed, and they partner with HUD to commit to making sure that we do our very best to make sure that people are not homeless and without housing. We've worked this year, just like the regional administrator said, we do a number of things. We worked the last couple of years with COVID education. We worked with tax credits to promote tax credits for children, reduce homelessness. And one of the other areas that is very big, and I'm hoping that this community applies, is healthy homes. Last year, with the assistance of Janae, she was able to assist the city of Tallahassee get $8 million for a Healthy Homes grant, which is phenomenal. Those Healthy Homes grants subcontract with some of the people in here to assist with housing rehab, doing electrical upgrades, and the likes in repairing homes. And it also preserves the current housing stocks for a community. Going down the line, next slide. We are also working with PAVE. Our secretary is a big, big advocate of PAVE, which is basically fair market appraisals for our communities. Most of us are aware and have experienced or have knowledge of the fact that minorities in particular have not received fair appraisal for our homes. And we all know the importance of a fair market appraisal for the valuation of your home. Our secretary herself personally experienced discrepancy in her home appraisal where her neighbor actually home appraised for, like, what'd you say, Elwa? $500,000 more than her own house. So that Our Way Home is another one where we're working to address some of our affordable housing issues, emergency rental assistance, reducing barriers to affordable housing, promoting Section 3, and working with foreclosure and eviction prevention. These are just some of the things that we're doing, but these are also some of the things that you can do in partnership and working with us to make sure that we have the communities that we all deserve and that we're working together to enhance what you're trying to do in partnership with what we're doing at HUD. And I think that's pretty much it. I don't want to go into too much detail. We're running behind time. So if are there any questions for me at this point? Did I talk too fast? Okay, yes. On that next slide, isn't it contact information? Okay, not really. Deidre.carey@hud.gov. Everybody can write that down. She's going to love this. DEDRA.Carey, CAREY, @HUD.gov. Thank you so much for your time and attention. We apologize for the slight delay. You can go to HUD.gov and find out information on Section 3. The presentation next is going to be on Section 3, and I think all of you will find that to be very valuable. Again, we're HUD in the community to help you. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Now we're going to get into the trainings, and to facilitate these trainings, Deidre Carey, you already know her, is going to be taking over the second portion of this program. She's a senior management program analyst, and she's been with HUD for 16 years, but she has been 25 years working in local government and the federal government, and she's from Orlando. She's right now at the Office of Field and Policy Management in Jacksonville. And with you, I leave Deidre.
Okay, hello everyone. I apologize. We are having a little bit of technical difficulty, so thank you for bearing with us. Again, my name is Deidre Carey. Everyone can hear me, right? I know I'm talking low. Okay. All right, so we definitely have a robust training for you today. We have presenters here from HUD, as well as Department of Labor, Department of Economic Opportunity. You've heard from Dr. Alicia Scott-Ford and our regional administrator, Mr. Alvarez. So we welcome you here today. What we're going to try to do now is switch over to have someone else run the slide, so that way you can hear the presenters. We have some presenters are here in person, but we have others that are presenting virtually. So my system wasn't linking up, so when you see us, I apologize for all the... Can we do the presenters that are here now? He's here, the Davis Bacon. But you want to try... So are you ready? Okay, so if you give me a minute, can you hear me? Okay, we're going to move to the Davis Bacon training from Department of Labor, and then we'll go back through the original run of show. Okay, so give me a second to pull up his PowerPoint.
I want to add this information for all of you that are present here today. Our Housing and Community Development Division staff is here today. They're sitting in the back. And I want them to stand up so you can look at their faces. If there are any questions about any of the topics that were discussed here today, you need some follow-up with information, or you need to know more about what the Orange County Housing and Community Development Division does, how your businesses can participate in our construction projects, our capital projects, our housing programs. Our staff is all the way in the back. We have our chief planner, Jana Suvorova. We have our capital projects manager, Sherry Julian, and her staff is right there. And the big boss is that gentleman, that handsome gentleman with the glasses. He's the one that knows everything. So we are going to stay after. We're going to stay after the training to talk to you if you have any questions about what we do, okay?
If you're happy and you know it. Does anybody have any questions while we're still waiting, though?
I can ask you something. As a general contractor, or I have a foundation too, and we try to work with CAD for so many years, but I wouldn't know how to approach because every time that we try to work with CAD, it's a third party that is getting the funds and wants to find a general contractor or contractor to work with. So as a general, I would like to work directly with CAD because it's going to be a reduced cost and everything. And since we have the foundation, for us, it's going to be very convenient because it's going to be even less cost. So I don't know if there is something that we can apply to CAD to be part of qualify with CAD.
You can, if you're a minority business.
We are minority
Okay,
business.
so if you're a minority business, you can register to be a minority business to do work with HUD. If you are in a local community, you can work directly with, if locally we do not work with communities, it's always through the county or the city.
Okay.
But if you're registered federally as a business with HUD, then you can do business directly with HUD, and that would be through Washington, D.C.
What kind of certification we need for that? Is that DB certification or?
Or just CAD certification. That's what we don't understand. So as a minority, we have all the certifications, but unfortunately,
So it depends on what you do. So the best thing to do is you go into our site and go to the section to apply as a minority contractor with HUD. It would explain automatically, depends on what you do, what is requested, and then you can submit it. Sometimes the small businesses find it better working through the local government because they receive direct funding, right? So that funding is there. And so there's different ways to work with HUD. But yeah, if you're qualified through HUD and you become a HUD qualified business, you can work directly with HUD. Yeah.
And we'll share some information also about how you can register locally. Oh, there are more questions? I'm sorry. Sorry. I don't know who provided you with that information, but our housing rehabilitation manager, she wears many hats. She's our capital projects manager and our housing rehabilitation. We do have a lead-based abatement program here in Orange County, funded through HUD. And she can give you the information, and I don't think that's completely correct. And we do have flyers on the front on how to register through our local program. So make sure you get one of those flyers. And there was a question back there? Well, depending on how everything goes, we're going to try to facilitate the information through you. Make sure that you sign your email at the front, that we have your email, and that way I can share the PowerPoint with you, no problem. And I'm so sorry, these things happen. But if you write your email, I make sure we get the information.
Okay, did you have a second question? The smart technology. Yeah, that would be a question for our single family program office. So you have my email address. Again, it's deidre.carey@hud.gov. So just email that question, email it to me directly. Any questions that you have, please email me. And I'll say my email address, I'll repeat it throughout the presentations, but please email me and I'll make sure it gets to the appropriate program office. Okay. So, and then I'll kind of go over, because I know Dr. Ford mentioned some of the program offices, but I'll kind of go over the various program offices that we have in HUD. So that way you kind of know, you get an idea. So if it rings a bell or you have a question, you'll kind of know where I'm going to be directing it to. Okay. So let me do this real quick because they're leaving. I want to thank our regional administrator and Dr. Ford, who is the field office director. They have other engagements. This is our 5th event for today. So we've been at City Hall for 2 meetings. We went over to Lift Orlando by Camping World Stadium. So yeah, we're on the move. So basically, and I'm sorry. Okay, so we're kind of veering off from the run of show that we had scheduled because of the technical difficulties. Again, we have some presenters who are going to be speaking virtually. So after Department of Labor goes, well, we have 2 Department of Labor presentations. And I'm going to introduce you in just a second. I'm sorry. Now that they're gone, I can relax and speak, So we have 2 from Department of Labor. And so we kind of flipped the order around just so we can, as he's presenting, we're going to try to get the IT portion taken care of. So basically with HUD, as Dr. Ford mentioned, we have 2 field offices. We have one in Jacksonville, Florida, and one in Miami, Florida. Okay. For our jurisdiction for the Jacksonville office, we cover 3/4 of the state. So we have 57 counties that we cover. If you draw an imaginary line from Sarasota across to Fort Pierce, everything above that. Okay, so with the Office of Field Policy Management, as Alicia mentioned, we're like the face of HUD. We get out in the community, we speak on behalf of the secretarial initiatives, and what we do is we try to meet with our external stakeholders to find out what your agendas are, some of the things that you're interested in, some of the concerns, and we, kind of match it up with the initiatives, hence this particular training here. This is our second one that we're doing. The first one was in Panama City, and they're actually looking to mimic this particular training, not what's going on today, but the actual training and the presenters throughout our jurisdiction. Okay, so this is the second one. The reason why we're bringing this training here is because we know that there's so much growth. Yes, I lived in Orlando. I'm from Miami, so I have to make that disclaimer. I'm from Miami, but I am a Florida girl. So I spent the first part of my career in D.C., but I wanted to come back here because I had vested interest. I lived in Florida. My children graduated high school here. So I do have vested interest in really the state of Florida, but more specifically Orlando, because that was some, critical times in my life as well as raising my children. So I wanted to come back here because I understand the growth. I understand how before, when I worked with Orange County government, we had the Tri-County. It was more Tri-County with Orange, Seminole, Osceola County. Now that Kissimmee has grown, everybody's kind of branching out doing their own thing. So we're actually doing this training. We have some events, 6 events in Kissimmee next week. So my focal area, I've been assigned this area because I'm like, okay, I know the layout, I know the organizations. Let's bring as much training as we can here. And we have such an influx of residents who have moved here. So we've all seen the housing market. We see what's going on with construction. You know, so we're basically, as Dr. Ford mentioned about our the ecosystems and some of the initiatives. Home ownership is a great piece, employment, workability, things of that nature. So everything that we're going to learn here is kind of ties into all of that. We will be having other training, so I guess I won't be as long-winded because I can start rattling on about everything that we're doing. So in between speakers, I'll kind of share more information, but just know that you have my email address. Anything pertaining to Orlando will come through our office except for the public housing, which is the Section 8, and that's out of Miami, but I'll explain that a little later, okay? So I'm gonna pause with what I'm speaking on, and I'm going to send it over to Mr. Michael, is it Gannett? Okay, and I apologize, I don't have your bio, so I can't, give you your kudos and all of that. But I thank him for being here. He was actually going to be the second to last to present because the meat and the potatoes is in the Davis-Bacon piece. I'm not minimizing the other presenters, but this is really about that Davis-Bacon piece. So not only do we have Mr. Gannett presenting from Department of Labor, later on you're going to hear from Alicia Oliver, who's out of our HUD Davis-Bacon office in Atlanta. So she's going to give you another perspective when it comes to the grants management piece related to HUD. So please, no one leave, bear with us. Again, we have a robust training, and it's really going to be great information. In between, we have Department of Economic Opportunities coming, we have OSHA. So just, bear with us. So with that, it might be a little sweaty. I'm sorry, the mic.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Michael Gannett. I'm with the U.S. Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division. We are the federal agency that oversees and enforces Davis-Bacon Act. Is that better? Oh, yes, it is. We are the federal agency that enforces Davis-Bacon Act, as well as a number of different federal labor laws. So from what you all are talking about today, this is a good training for you because if you are looking to bid on a project, if you are on a project where there's federal funds, you want to make sure you're in compliance with all the requirements of Davis-Bacon, because that's where we come in. We come out to projects and look to make sure employers, whether it's a prime contractor, whether it's a subcontractor, a sub of a sub of a sub, are all in compliance. Some of the basic concepts that I'm going to just go over, and I'm going to give a very general overview of Davis-Bacon. I'm not going to get very into it because that could take multiple hours. I'm just going to give you some of the basic ideas that you want to know and some of the questions that I'm going to answer are, to whom does Davis-Bacon prevailing wage requirements apply? Was each employee paid properly in terms of their classification of the work performed? Was the work that they were employed on, was it site of the work? Were they doing the work at the shop? Were they doing the work directly on the construction site? And also, was the employer making all contributions to the fringe benefits properly, so that way it is credible towards meeting the prevailing wage requirements? So what is the term labor or mechanic? Because you'll see that a lot with Davis-Bacon. We're not necessarily talking about a foreman. Labor or mechanic is the workers whose duties are manual and physical in nature. They are the ones that are picking up the tools, they're doing the actual work. It is not someone who is doing managerial. Yes. Sure, absolutely. We're not, apprentices, trainees, helpers, it applies to them as well. Typically on laborers and mechanics, we're talking about electricians, roofers, AC installation. We're talking about, like I said, assistants, Generally, your foreman is not going to be a laborer mechanic unless they're actually doing that manual labor. If they are a labor mechanic, that means that they have to be paid the correct prevailing wage or fringe benefit as is listed on the wage determination. So as I said, it does. I talked a little bit about what it does include. What it doesn't include are your timekeepers, your architects, your engineers, your safety inspectors, somebody who might fall under FLSA, which is the Fair Labor Standards Act. They won't be one of your exempt employees. Somebody who is a manager, who is a COO, those kind of things. It's going to be the people who are on the project actually doing the building. Now, there's the concept you'll see sometimes that says site of work. Site of work means where the construction is. If they're doing any work on the project at the construction site, they have to be paid the appropriate prevailing wage and fringe benefits. I'm not going to get into all the specifics on site of work. I'm going to sum it up simply. If you're on the project, yes. If you're doing work at the shop, no. Then you are not necessarily while you could be fabricating at the shop, once it comes out to the project, that's where the Davis-Bacon wage rates kick in. If there is a facility that was built specifically for the project, not necessarily on the site, then prevailing wage rates would apply as well. I mean, years of doing investigations, I haven't seen it that often. Typically, a lot of it is you're on site where the housing is being built, in this case for HUD, or you're doing work at the shop. Like I said, when you're at the shop, however you're normally paid, you can be paid once you get onto the site. All the rules on what wage rates and what classifications have to be met, and you have to be paid correctly. Okay, so I'm not going to go through, there's a few slides on truck drivers. I'm not going to go through them all. Generally, I just want to highlight that drivers, when they are dropping off materials, it's more incidental. If you're dropping off, you're coming onto the project, you're there for a little while, then you leave, the wage rates really aren't going to apply. It's more when you're spending a significant amount of time on the project. There's other concepts that come into play. I'm not going to go into it for the general overview. In terms of owner-operators, I believe they're going to make the presentation available after, so you can get more detail on some of these things later. I generally want to get to the main important parts of it. So let's say you're looking at a wage determination. You're looking at bidding on a project, or you're already on a project. You want to see what rates need to be, which will be applicable to you and your employees. The wage rates listed on a wage determination, for all intents and purposes, on a Davis-Bacon project becomes minimum wage. They can always be paid more, but they can't be paid less. And that is going to be based on what their job is. And you have to really look at it because there's a couple things you need to take into account. Is it a union negotiated rate? Is it an open shop rate? And information on the wage determination typically tells you that. I'm not going to walk through a wage determination right now. Believe me, if you have questions, you can always call Wage and Hour Division for general information, as well as some of the websites which are listed at the end of the presentation to find out some more information. Because where that comes in is while you have a helper who you might employ, or an assistant electrician you might employ on any regular project, once they come onto a Davis-Bacon project, they're not necessarily a helper anymore. They might have to get paid as an electrician, and that's where sometimes there are compliance issues that come in. You can try to put in what's called a conformance, which is when you identify a classification that might not be on a wage determination, but in all my years, I've never seen an assistant or a helper classification that's been approved. So typically, if somebody is an electrician, they're an electrician. It doesn't matter whether they're a journeyman that's been doing it for 20 years or they're brand new to the trade. If they're doing the job duties in line with what, in this case, an electrician does, they're an electrician, which means they have to be paid the wage rates, prevailing wage, and the fringe benefits. So if they normally, say, get $15 an hour on any given project, and a wage determination says an electrician is 35, they're getting 35 on that project. And if not, you could end up with a compliance issue. And in the unfortunate situation where we happen to come out, we're going to compute back wages after doing an investigation, and you're going to have to pay those employees the appropriate wages in order to get back into compliance. So you do have to look, especially in the bidding phase, and look and see what those wage rates call for, and make sure you're really taking into account the work they're going to be doing and those rates they need to get paid. Now, you do get into situations where you might have somebody who performs work in more than one classification. Perhaps they're doing 20 hours as a carpenter, 20 hours as an electrician. This is where what we typically would tell employers are records of your friend. You need to make sure you segregate the hours appropriately, keep a good track of the hours that they're working in those classifications, because you do have to make sure you pay them appropriately. And we'll talk about a little later the kind of records you need to keep on a Davis-Bacon project in addition to your regular payroll and time records. You do get into certified payrolls, and you need to make sure you segregate correctly on those certified payrolls when they're working in more than one classification. So when we say prevailing wage, those terms, they mean the basic hourly rate, their rate of pay for the work they're doing. Typically on Davis-Bacon, there will be two columns on a wage determination. You're going to have your prevailing wage and your fringe benefit. Fringe benefits can be paid either as part of their hourly wage or through different benefits, medical insurance, 401k. There's a number of different ways you can pay the fringe. Often it is just straight paid. You know, if it's 15 and 5, an employer could just pay the 20 and they'd be in compliance. That $5 from a fringe benefit that they might be required to pay based on the wage determination, you have to ensure that whatever benefits you're giving adds up to the $5 per hour. You can, of course, like I said, pay the fringe benefits, can be paid in, we say in cash, that means as part of their hourly rate. It can be made into a bona fide program, such as medical insurance, 401k, or it can be a combination. perhaps if you're required to pay $5, you're paying 3 of it as an hourly wage, and the other 2 you're paying as part of a bona fide benefit. But everything, as we always say, is that you need to keep records of all of it. If you're putting payments into a 401k, I can tell you when we do investigations, we are going to request copies to show that you are making those contributions to 401k, or we're going to ask all the employees during our labor interviews, do you get insurance? And when you tell us that, yep, we're contributing to insurance, and everyone tells us no, and you don't have the records, it's going to show that you're not in compliance as far as that goes. So like I said, fringe benefits, it can be made either periodically, however, into the retirement plans, health benefits, or it can be made on quarterly basis. Again, you just need to make sure that you keep the records that show that you are contributing. As far as wages go on when it comes to Davis-Bacon, and we'll mention this in regards to the certified payrolls, is sometimes it might mean you might have to alter how you pay employees. Davis-Bacon projects do require you to make weekly payments. It's a weekly payroll. The same thing with the certified payrolls are done weekly. You need to make sure that you're paying for all hours worked on that weekly basis. Again, the fringes can be made quarterly. You'll keep the records and you'll show that you're making the contributions, but when we do reviews, that's what we're looking for, to make sure that everyone is getting paid what they should pay. And all of that is based on that you also are paying in the proper classifications. I would say you can pay over, you can pay more on an hourly wage to cover the fringe benefit. We often see, especially in construction, that the prevailing wage and the fringe benefits are combined and just paid as one hourly rate. That's not uncommon. So you can pay over that prevailing wage in order to cover the fringe benefit part. So this next slide just kind of illustrates what I was saying, that in terms of what the requirements might be when you look at a wage determination in any particular classification. So in this case, you have a prevailing wage of $14, and BHR is your basic hourly rate. And then the fringe benefit calls for $1. So at the end of the day, that employee needs to make sure, you need to ensure they're getting at least $15 an hour for all hours worked on a Davis-Bacon project. And it can be done whether you're paying them the $15 cash wage, whether you're doing it as $14 with $1 in fringe benefits, or even $12 and $3 in fringe benefits. So you can pay more on either side, but at the end of the day, it just needs to make sure that you're getting to the 15. Okay, so taking into account an issue sometimes we do see is when it comes to deductions. Now, all legal deductions, that's what we're talking about, anything from IRS, from workman's comp, from even court-ordered, you get court orders for child support, for loan repayments. Those do not affect the prevailing wage. Those are allowable deductions under the law. What we typically talk about are some of the other items, which are more to an employer benefit. You can't necessarily deduct for uniforms, for tools, for damage to equipment. Those kind of deductions are considered improper and illegal, and they'll bring the employee below, or possibly bring them below the prevailing wage. And then when that happens, you're going to have a shortfall, which means that instead of getting that $15, they perhaps got $10, they got $8, and they need to be made whole. Technically, sometimes deductions in this sense can be made if a prevailing wage is 15, but you generally pay them 25. There is an area that you could deduct where it won't create a violation under the law. But as a rule of thumb, we usually say don't make any of these deductions. These are all deductions that fall under the employer's benefit. It's one thing if the employee is using maybe your account that you have with suppliers to buy tools that in the end they can take with them if they left the company tomorrow. Those are to their benefit. It's more on, well, we provide certain equipment and it's ours, it's not going to leave. We give them this set of tools, and if they leave tomorrow, they give it back. You can't pass on those. You can't require them to wear uniforms and charge them for those costs, because it's one thing if wear a red shirt. It's another thing when it's wear a red shirt that has our logo on it. That's to your benefit, not to theirs. Those, you can provide them, you just can't charge them for them. Because those could then bring below the prevailing wage or the fringe benefit and then result in an issue that you might have. Okay, so in terms of wage and hour, what we tell employers more than anything else is always, again, records are your friend. They get you out of, they are your basis to show what hours are worked. I mentioned that if somebody is working in 2 different classifications, you want to make sure you're giving them, you're keeping track of the hours that they work perfectly, because you want them to then mirror what the basic and payroll requirements are. And there's a number of different requirements in Davis-Bacon. You have to keep your basic payroll and time records, and there's no necessarily requirement on what your time records look like. They could be time cards, they could be time sheets, they could be electronic that they clock in and out with their finger, they clock in and out on an app. What your basic time records need to include are start time and end times, the end of the week, the total hours worked. Your payroll records need to include pretty much that information as well, total hours, the rates they paid, gross, any regular deductions. And all of those records need to be kept for at least 3 years. A lot of businesses end up keeping longer because of IRS requirements. What we care about is at least 3 years, because when we come, if we were to come and do a review of you, we're going to ask generally for the last 2 years of records. And you do want to make sure you're keeping records of any contributions to bona fide programs. If you are providing the fringe benefit as an actual benefit as opposed to the cash wage, you want to have the record of that. You want to have the statements showing that you're contributing to Blue Cross Blue Shield or whatever kind of 401k program. So that way you can show that you were in compliance with those fringe benefit requirements. Besides your normal company basic payroll and time records, you are required on Davis-Bacon projects to keep and complete certified payrolls. And essentially what a certified payroll is a federal record that you are certifying that these are the hours and pay that was worked on a specific project, and I mean a government project. somebody from the company will sign it, certifying that all the information all the information on it is true and accurate. And as a caveat, we always do point out, because it says it on the certified, any false information on there does constitute possible civil and criminal charges. And truth be told, as an investigator, I've had cases that we forwarded to appropriate agencies because they provided, in that case, falsified certified payrolls. So you want to make sure that the information you're putting on there is true. If you put something, you put 32 hours, and then an employee comes to you and says, you forgot the 8 hours, maybe I came out on Saturday and worked. Okay, you can do a corrected certified payroll, and you want to make sure you do that. But the information generally on the certified payrolls needs to be accurate. If somebody works in multiple classifications, you might list them 3 times on there. And you want to make sure to put their straight time hours worked as well as their overtime hours worked. And of course, any deductions, there will be your legal deductions as well as you shouldn't have the other deductions, but if you have a court-ordered deduction, you're going to list that on there. And truthfully, it needs to mirror what is on your payroll as well. And these are just some of the citations in the law regarding some of the certified payroll requirements. So your basic certified payroll is almost 2 sheets. The first page of it is going to be where you list all the employees who worked on that project, the hours they worked, the pay they received. The second sheet is a statement of compliance, and that's the one where someone from the company is signing that everything is accurate. You're certifying that you were in compliance, and you're going to do that for every work week on the project. Oftentimes I've seen contractors that might still do one that says no work performed. Sometimes that can be a requirement from the contracting agency. It could be a requirement from the prime contractor. But you're going to do one for each week you work on the project, and you want to make sure that you're submitting it within 1 week of the work performed. That is a requirement. Technically, typically it comes in for repeated companies that have a history. There are different criteria that Department of Labor can base debarment on, and compliance with, certified payrolls is one of those, however rare. So as I mentioned, generally there's a lot of different sites where you can find information. We do have our general wage hour division site, as well as the wage determination website. You can't necessarily go there to specifically find the wage determination that applies to your project. You're going to have to get that from the contracting agency, because it's hard to, typically the wage determination, it might have broke ground in January, but this is a project that could have been a year and a half in the making, and that's the wage determination that's going to be in there from the time of award. But generally, I wanted to make sure I give you a good overview. It can get very complicated very quickly. You can feel free to call any of our offices. Our contact information is on our website. Does anyone have any questions? So that's an interesting question, because I was talking to someone beforehand about it, so typically the contracting agency is going to provide that contract to the prime contractor, whoever's in charge of the contract. That's ultimately who that contract is with. Now, they're allowed to sub it out. They could sub it from prime contractor could sub it out to subcontractor A, who does it to B, who does it to C. So perhaps you're the A, and then you dish it out to the B. At the end of the day, if B has issues and I'd say doesn't want to come into compliance or doesn't want to pay the appropriate back wages, we're coming to you. And if you, for whatever reason, same thing, can't comply, can't pay, we go up the chain and we'll end up with the prime contractor, because the prime contractor is ultimately the one that has that contract. I can tell you as an investigator, I've had situations where okay, you owe X number of dollars. Are you going to pay it? No. Okay, great. Hi, guess what? You're the prime contractor. Yeah, we know we're going to pay it. Okay, and we'll take care of that. And I've had that, unfortunately, a number of times, and my investigators have had that a number of times, because ultimately it's whoever has the contract is the ultimate person who's responsible. So yeah, when subbing out work, you need to make sure, that is one of the requirements. You have to make sure your subcontractors are in compliance as well. And truthfully, if you see something on that certified payroll that looks iffy, ask questions. Because I know I can look at a certified payroll and look at a sample and go, okay, we're going to go out and look at them just based on a certified payroll without ever hearing from one employee. I'd like to pick on electricians. If you're an electrical subcontractor and you have one electrician and 20 laborers, you probably have an issue, because that is a really clean job site otherwise. Any other questions? Great, thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, we're going to try to switch over because right now my system is not linking to the audio. So we have some of the presenters that have come in virtually, so we're going to see if we can hear them. Now, what I have to do is, because we have 25 minutes and we had about 6 presenters and we've only heard 2. I know. So I apologize. We ran behind. We can do this one of 2 ways. Let me just let you know, I'm definitely going to schedule a virtual meeting, because I really appreciate everyone taking the time to come out. Definitely. We're trying to do more in person, but when situations like this happen, it's out of our control. So I will be scheduling a virtual training so everyone, and I'm hoping they can hear me, the presenters. I know it's an echo because I'm linked to my system, but I'm going to ask them if they can come back, those external to HUD. HUD presenters, I know it'll be a little easier for me to get them to come back. Okay, because I feel like I hear myself echoing. Okay, so we're definitely going to do that. So please make sure you leave your email address. Make sure it's legible. When I was in Panama City, I couldn't read half of what they wrote. And I felt bad, because I'm planning to share the slides with you as well. So either email me if that's easier, but make sure if you leave your email address, just make sure it's legible. I know I'm tongue-tied, I'm tired, I apologize. And what I'll do is I'll send an invite via Outlook, and it'll go directly on your calendar, and we'll go from there, okay? Yes, it is DERA.carey@HUD.gov. Okay. Oh, you're welcome. Okay, so while they're trying to connect, does anyone have any questions in reference to HUD and our program office at this time? Yes. Section 3. Mm-hmm. That is a slide presentation. She's actually next on the list. So we're trying to get her, up next. Yes. So basically, while they're doing this, again, With our HUD program offices, we are the Office of Field Policy Management. We have Community Planning and Development. They work close with the coalitions of care for so that's the homeless, the veterans. What else do they have? CPD. We say CPD. That's the acronyms, but Community Planning and Development. Yeah, the continuums of care, which they work with the homeless. VASH, there's a couple other things I can't remember. I'm going blank. Okay, so that's them. No, Section 3 really is from the Office of Field Policy and Management. So Roma, who's going to be presenting, she's from Field Policy and Management. That's Community Planning and Development. Yes, yes. So, you know, we have CDBG Week. Those funds come from there. So funding goes to the cities, and they disseminate you know, those resources into the community. So it can go into home, you know, building, revitalizing communities. It can go into, you know, with the COCs. There's various things that these dollars can be used for. I'm hoping we can get Roma on the call, because when you're dealing with Section 3, HUD has a portal, and it's almost like a matchmaking. So you have the business owners are able to register your businesses, but then you have the tenants or people in the community can upload their resume.
There's also a piece of paper out there that has like all the HUD programs.
And I should have had it in front of me.
So there's a stapled piece of paper. Yes. It should be 2 pieces. Yeah. So that has all the HUD programs on it, and it has our jurisdictions, and so I think Section 3 is on it. You didn't? Okay, so Section 3 is under FPM, but I think, yeah, we have, Roma's going to be talking about it. Field Policy and Management.
Mm-hmm. I know you got to go through it. Oh, okay. Okay, I'm going to call in. Let's see.
Somebody's going to click.
We're going to.
Old school. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, let's hope this works. Oh, where's the call?
Join Teams meeting. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I guess.
Are you trying to? Okay.
Or call in. If we get called in from a phone. Because I need to see the presenters. I can't.
Do you want to just use my phone?
Yeah. Okay, give us 2 seconds, please. You have the meeting on yours?
No, just go to exit.
No, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I'll let you. I'll email you all the information. Yeah. Okay, thank you again. Welcome to the audio. Okay, give us a second, please. So for the presenters who are listening via Teams, I apologize, and I'm going to send you guys an email to request that you participate in the virtual.
Okay. So my phone is up here. All right. So Roma should be able to hear us.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you, Roma. Great.
Okay.
Let's try that. Now, can they share the screen?
Okay, Roma, can you share your screen, and then I'll stop sharing.
Roma, can you share your screen?
Yes, give me 1 second.
Okay, I think this can work.
Roma, we can hear you now, and we just need you to share your screen, and then we'll go from there. We can hear you.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, let me introduce you. Okay,
Let me give you another one.
oh, sorry. Okay. Hello? All right, so this is Roma Yengo, and she is a management analyst in the HUD office in Columbus, Ohio. She serves as the Section 3 point of contact for the office and has provided numerous trainings on HUD Section 3 rule for HUD funding grantees, small businesses, and interested individuals over the past 2 years. So Roma's going to present on Section 3, and because of time, we may or may not be able to get to some of the other presenters. I'm not sure how long Roma is going to take, but we'll kind of go from there. So the other presenters, please bear with us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Roma Yengo. I'm an analyst in the Columbus, Ohio field office. I want to thank the Jacksonville field office and Deidre, Janae, and Director Alicia Scott Ford for inviting me to present today. In the interest of time, I will not be taking questions at the end. I do have, there's a Section 3 inbox that you can email your questions to that will be posted on the slide. Okay, so jumping into this presentation, this is going to be a general overview of the new Section 3 rule, which came into play starting November of 2020. There's a transition period for HUD funding grantees from November of 2020 to July of 2021 to get their act in order to accommodate the new rule. That is kind of just FYI for you as a business, and also, as an FYI, on the HUD exchange, there are a wealth of resources, including self-directed training, a Section 3 guidebook, FAQs, all on the HUD exchange. So if you have any questions, that may be a good resource for you as well. So the Section 3 statute, while there is a new rule, the statute has not changed. It's been around since the HUD Act of 1968. Section 3 is designed to ensure that opportunities generated by certain HUD funding, to the greatest extent feasible, are directed towards low or very low income individuals. And that's how it has always been. Okay, so now we will talk about the new rule and how things are changing. So the previous rule prior to November 2020 was not as focused on the key intent of the statute, and that is why it's changing. The key intent here is self-sufficiency. The changes to the Section 3 rule were established and updated in an effort to increase the impact of the rule for low and very low income persons, and to kind of reduce the regulatory burden on HUD funding grantees, subrecipients, contractors, etc. So, like I mentioned, Section 3 started in 1968, and the old rule was promulgated in 1995. A new rule was proposed in 2015, but it never became final. Then in 2019, regulations were proposed that became effective, like I said, in November 2020, with the transition period from November 2020 to July 1st of 21. What this means for you is that, just so you know, every contract with funds committed, with HUD funds committed, and there are certain thresholds I'll talk about, contract with funds committed on or after July 1st of 2021, they have to report based on the new labor hour standards with the new Section 3 rule. So the final rule seeks to support a more sustainable approach to Section 3. To reach this goal, the final rule is focusing on reporting on key outcome metrics, aligning reporting with standard business practices, which of course are modeled after Davis-Bacon labor standards. What this means is promoting sustained employment and career development, and they have also changed the thresholds for Section 3 covered assistance. As I'll mention in a later slide, the new rule tracks labor hours rather than new hires. So that kind of goes back to what it's saying on this slide. This kind of allows recipients of HUD funding to focus on tracking labor hours through the life cycle of a project, and versus new hires where they might not potentially get hours and income in the long run. So that's why we're tracking the labor hours now. Section 3 applies to public housing funds as well as housing and community development funds. And it's specifically for housing rehabilitation, housing construction, or other public construction. So that is what's covered by Section 3. In the FAQ on the HUD Exchange, there are, if you have additional questions on what is covered and what is not, that can be found on the HUD Exchange. Okay, so one of the changes to the Section 3 rule was a new term, Section 3 worker. Previously, these individuals were called Section 3 residents. It's now Section 3 workers. A Section 3 worker is any worker who currently fits or when hired within the last 5 years fit one of these categories. So either they are low or very low income, which is established by a HUD established limit, which is 80% of the area median income, or the worker is employed by a Section 3 business concern. That part is important to keep in mind, or the worker is a youth build participant. So a Section 3 business, and this one is also important for you to keep in mind as well, is a business that is either 51% or more controlled or owned by low or very low income persons, or greater than 75% of the labor hours are performed over the last 3 months by low or very low income workers, or at least 51% of the business is owned or controlled by residents of public housing or Section 8 voucher holders. Additionally, there is a new term called targeted Section 3 worker. This definition was created to kind of target the Section 3 workers that live in the area where that funding is being spent, which is what this new rule is all about. So if you kind of look at that circle there, the image on the left, every targeted Section 3 worker is a Section 3 worker, but not every Section 3 worker is a targeted Section 3 worker. Targeted just refers to that immediate area, like I said, where the funding is being spent. Okay, so for the HUD funding grantees, what their requirements are, in order to satisfy the Section 3 rule, they need to make sure that at least 25% of their labor hours on Section 3 applicable projects are performed by Section 3 workers, and within that 25%, at least 5% of the labor hours are performed by targeted Section 3 workers. I mentioned earlier the Section 3 business concern, how that's an important definition for you. So with their funding grantees, if they use a Section 3 business, they don't have to go through, and count up those labor hours from specific workers that qualify as a Section 3 worker. They can use all of the labor hours performed by a Section 3 business. So if your business qualifies as a Section 3 business, you can use that to your advantage, when marketing yourself and looking out for these federal contracts. So key changes, what I mentioned before, kind of tying this presentation together. So there are funding thresholds that trigger Section 3. There's not any for public housing programs. So for public housing authorities, every dollar starting from the first dollar up of HUD funding that they receive is Section 3 applicable. There are housing and community development programs that they have. So the housing and community development programs have a $200,000 threshold per project to trigger Section 3. So for example, so CDBG, if there is a project that is using CDBG funds, and the project exceeds 200,000, that project triggers Section 3. Therefore, that grantee has that requirement to the greatest extent feasible, seek out Section 3 businesses and Section 3 workers. This slide kind of goes over what HUD funding grantees need to pay attention to, which is also outlined in the CFR. Section 3 is in 24 CFR Part 75. And yeah, so that's some detail that they have to look out for. I won't go into detail on that. Establishing status. So HUD funding grantees have to verify that a business qualifies as a Section 3 business or that a worker qualifies as a Section 3 worker. HUD does not perform those verifications. And Section 3 also does defer to local, state, and federal regulations. So there might be different localities out there that have rules that you're not allowed to ask about income before hire. If that's the case, then the grantee would have to take a different approach to reporting their Section 3 requirements. But obviously that's on a case-by-case basis. So for record-keeping requirements, again, this is for the HUD funding grantees. They have to maintain documentation to ensure that their subrecipients, contractors or subcontractors, are maintaining documentation to ensure that workers that are listed as Section 3 workers meet that definition or meet that definition of targeted Section 3 workers. There are several ways to do this. And the requirements listed here are quite broad. That intent is kind of to alleviate some of the administrative burden when doing Section 3 reporting. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so here are some resources available for, like I said at the beginning, any questions you might have. That Section 3 at HUD.gov towards the bottom of the slide there is a great resource for any specific questions you have. So if today or later on when reviewing this presentation you have a question about Section 3, feel free to send it directly to that inbox, Section 3 at HUD.gov. Unfortunately, so there is a Section 3 business registry and opportunity portal listed here. Unfortunately, those have been discontinued by HUD. But like I said, there are a plethora of resources available on the HUD Exchange, which is also linked here, including on-demand Section 3 training, self-guided trainings, things like that. Okay, so that is the end of my presentation. Again, the best resource for your questions would be to send them to that inbox, Section 3 at HUD.gov. In the interest of time, I won't be accepting any questions at this time, so feel free to send them to that inbox. And I will turn it back over to Deidre. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Roma. Okay, I do see that we still have 3 presenters on the line. Are you guys okay with moving forward? And if nothing else, I can see, and Roma, I may need you to drive the slides. I can see if Mr. Kelly from DEO, Department of Economic Opportunity, can just give a brief overview, as well as Ms. Wyndham from OSHA. Do you guys have maybe 15 minutes? And I can just ask them to kind of breeze through their slides. Or do you want to just wait and we do the virtual training?
This is Chris. I can present.
Okay. So I see some everyone's saying virtual. Okay. Mm-hmm.
I can also. Yeah, I can present.
Okay, the 2 of you can still present. Mm-hmm. Okay, because the room is kind of half. Okay, so is anyone able to stay a little longer for those 2? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and stay. I'm sorry, Elisa.
So do you want me to say, because I still can, or do you want me?
I think for you, we can reschedule it. I definitely want our outside stakeholders, our partner agencies to go ahead and present, because I don't know when I'll be able to get them again. So I apologize. So Ms. Oliver, when we reschedule the virtual, I'll definitely have you on there, since we already have, the Department of Labor, Davis-Bacon portion of it. So I'm going to reschedule the virtual. Okay, thank you so much. I apologize. Okay, so Roma, can you pull up Mr. Kelly? He's from Department of Economic Opportunity, and he should have a cover slide. Thank you so much. I appreciate your assistance. Okay, so while she's pulling, thank you. While she's pulling up for Department of Economic Opportunity, his name is Chris O'Kelly. He's going to present. Matter of fact, let me pull up his bio. That was the whole point. Yes. Yes, yes, please do. If anyone wants to move closer, you can. I know, I was sitting up close and I had to put my glasses on because I couldn't see. So feel free to come closer. Get comfortable, get something to drink, We're in this together.
You guys ready?
It looks like it's saying to reload. Roma, are you able to? Okay, so thanks again, Ms. Wyndham. I appreciate you waiting as well. Okay, so the next presenter is going to be Mr. Chris Kelly. He is a program manager from the Office of Bureau of Business Development from the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. So as soon as Roma is able to pull up the slides, Roma, are you still there, or did you get?
Yes, I apologize. It was showing up on my end. I'm not sure what happened, but I will try sharing again.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can you see it now?
Yes, we can. Okay, is everyone ready? We're going to slide right into the next presentation with Mr. O'Kelly. Okay, so I'm going to put the mic back down. So Mr. O'Kelly, whenever you're ready, and if you could please let Roma know when to change the slide. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Deidre. Appreciate the opportunity to present to you guys today. Like Deidre said, I'm Chris O'Kelly. I work within the Bureau of Business Development, within the Division of Strategic Business Development, and then within the Department of Economic Opportunity up here in Tallahassee. You can go on to the next slide.
You may have to speak up a little louder. I have the microphone on the laptop, but they can barely hear you guys. Okay.
All right, next slide. It's going the wrong way. It's right there. We're going to go to 45. Once you start presenting, it's going to start from the beginning.
And his slides were right after yours. Okay.
We'll go from there. That's fine. You don't have to enter presentation mode. We can just go with this in the interest of time. All right, so strategic business development, we do a handful of programs, community, and I'll go through kind of a high-level overview of them today. Community contribution tax credit, R&D tax credit, urban and rural job tax credit, touch and opportunity zones, and then on the state small business credit initiative, and black business loan program. You can go to the next slide. So community contribution tax credit, this is one that I actually work on pretty closely and am most familiar with. It is a tax credit designed to incentivize businesses to make donations for housing and community development projects within the state. Businesses located in Florida can make an approved donation, either cash goods or 100% in profit, and receive a 50% tax credit based off the value of the donation. this fiscal year, 22-23, there's a total of 19 million in tax credits available. 14.5 million are in the home ownership category, and 4.5 million fall into the all other category, which covers entrepreneurial and job development opportunities for low-income individuals. Can go to the next slide. Next is the Research and Development Tax Credit Program. This one is specifically for C-type corporations that incur research and development expenses within the state of Florida. Those expenses must occur within the state. A corporation that has those qualified research expenses that in the taxable year exceeding the base amount as defined in statute. And then for the type of corporation, it must be either manufacturing, life science, IT, aviation, homeland security, cloud information technology, marine sciences, material sciences, or nanotech. Next slide. So first you're going to apply to the Department of Economic Opportunity, that's us, to get approved. And then after that you apply to the Department of Revenue to actually get the tax credit. This year, and in previous years, there have been 9 million in tax credits available, but based off demand, there's usually a high demand for it. Applications usually get prorated. In the calendar year 2022, the prorata was at 11.6%. Next slide. The Urban High Crime Area Job Tax Credit Program. This is a program that was created in 1997. It offers a tax credit ranging from either $500 to $1,500 per qualified new job. And those qualified employees must work at least 36 hours per week for 3 months before they're considered eligible in order to get a tax credit based off of them working there. The program is limited to 5 million tax credits, but as you can see in calendar year 2022, there are only 968,500 in approved tax credits. And I think that's pretty much an average for this program. It, to my knowledge, has never hit the maximum of 5 million in credits. So please, if you qualify, there are credits available. And on the right, you can see some of the parameters for the program. There are 3 tiers of areas that qualify for the program. We'll see on the next slide a list of them. But those are just the amounts that you get per tier per job and the number of qualified employees that you must submit on an application in order to be eligible, both for new and existing businesses. Next slide. So as I mentioned a minute ago, on the right there are a list of areas that qualify for the program. So it's certain areas within those communities. It's not the entire community that is eligible for the program. We have a map for each one. It'd be too much to put on the slide. But if you're curious whether your business is in an eligible area, please reach out to us and we can let you know. On the left is a list of eligible industries: agricultural, manufacturing, retail, hotels and lodging, public warehouse and storage, motion picture, research and development, and we are in Florida, so public golf courses and amusement parks are both also considered eligible industries. Next slide. All right, the Rural Job Tax Credit Program. I'm not repeating myself. This is a similar program to Urban Jobs, so they rhyme a little bit with what we just went over. Again, it was created in 1997. Eligible businesses are sole proprietorships, partnerships, or corporations. Single business may not receive more than $500,000 in tax credits in 1 year. There are 5 million in tax credits available. And again, 123,000 were issued in calendar year 2022. So there is available tax credits for this program. Some parameters on the right. New businesses must have 10 qualified employees on the date of application. They'd get 1,000 per new employee, and then existing businesses, if you have less than 50 employees at the time of application, you must at a minimum add 20% more qualified employees than from 1 year prior to the date of application. And for existing businesses with 50 or more, you must add at least 10 new qualified employees in order to qualify, and all of those are for a $1,000 tax credit. Next slide. Again, eligible industries. I believe the only one that is not on here that was on urban was a miscellaneous retail. And then the qualified areas for this, it's not, a designated area within a city. It is rural areas of opportunity in rural counties within the state of Florida. If you have questions on whether you qualify, you can please reach out to us after. Next slide. All right, federal qualified opportunity zones. This isn't a program that we manage. It's a federal program, but we do have a representative in our office who can answer more specific questions on this one. But just a broad overview. It was created in 2017 to encourage businesses, developers, and financial institutions to invest in low-income census-tract areas in the interest of economic development and job creation. There are 427 opportunity zones in Florida and at least one in all 67 counties. The qualified opportunity zone funds are certified through the IRS with tax benefits accruing after unrealized capital gains from other investments are rolled over into its qualified opportunity zone funds. And they're required to invest at least 90% of the assets in QOZ properties, the QOZ businesses. Next slide. Some benefits of the program. First, taxes temporarily deferred. Taxpayers can defer paying taxes on previous capital gains reinvested in qualified QOFs until the earlier date of which the investment is sold, or December 31st, 2026. Benefit 2, deferral. Basis of QOF investment is increased by 10% of the gain rolled into a QOF if the taxpayer holds the QOF investment for at least 5 years, and by 15% of the gain in the QOF investment if the taxpayer holds it for at least 7. Finally, exclusion. The basis of a QOF investment is increased to the fair market value of the investment on the date of the QOF investment is sold or exchanged. If the taxpayer holds it for the investment for at least 10 years, result in no federal tax on the appreciation of the QOF investment. Next slide. All right, the State Small Business Credit Initiative. This was reauthorized in 2021. It's federally administered through the Department of Treasury and allows allocates funding to states in order to expand access to capital, promote economic resiliency, create new jobs, and increase economic opportunity. The funds will support businesses owned or controlled by socially and economically disadvantaged individuals, including minority, women, veteran-owned businesses, and rural or other small business populations across the state. Next slide. All right, so there is a total of $488 million plus available for various capital access, credit support, and venture capital programs to support small businesses. That's within the state of Florida. The main allocation has $300 million, very small business allocation 23, the SETI allocation 107, and then the initial amounts of SETI incentive is $57 million. Next slide. So any Florida-based business that is located within Florida with 500 employees or less is eligible, including corporations, partnerships, sole proprietorships, independent contractors, nonprofits, and cooperatives. Permissible borrowers may include state-designated charitable, religious, or other nonprofit or philanthropic institutions, government-owned corporations, consumer and marketing cooperatives, and faith-based organizations, provided that the loan is for a business purpose. Business purpose is a pretty broad definition down there. It includes but not limited to startup costs, working capital, business procurement, franchise fees, equipment, inventory, and the purchase, construction, renovation, or tenant improvements of an eligible place of business that is not for passive real estate investment purposes. Next slide. Some programs for SSBCI, loan participation. enables small businesses to obtain medium to long-term financing, usually through a term loan, to help them grow and expand their business. The state may act as a lender in partnership with the financial institution lender to provide small businesses loans at attractive terms. The loan guarantee program enables small businesses to obtain term loans or lines of credit to help them grow or expand their business. The program provides a lender with the necessary security in the form of a partial guarantee for the lender to approve a loan or line of credit. Collateral support enables financing that might otherwise be available to a collateral shortfall, and the program supplies pledged cash collateral accounts to lending institutions to enhance the collateral coverage of individual loans. Next slide. Final program is the Capital Access Program. It's a loan portfolio insurance program where a lender originates a loan with an eligible borrower, and then the lender and borrower contribute a percentage of the loan into a reserve fund, and DGO then matches the combined contribution with SSBCI funds. Next slide. So participating lenders can be found at floridajobs.org. And next slide. The Black Business Loan Program. Black Business Loan Program provides loans, loan guarantees, or investment through loan administrators to Black business enterprises that cannot otherwise obtain capital through conventional lending institutions, but otherwise who can complete successfully in the private sector. Next slide. And finally, Prospera assists Hispanic business owners in the process of obtaining traditional microloans, includes guidance on credit improvement, help developing a business plan, preparing loan applications, and presenting a business concept. Next slide. There are the contacts for each of the programs I just discussed in kind of high level today. If you have any detailed questions or specific questions about your business, please feel free to reach out to anyone on the screen there. If you can't jot their email down, the time it's up there, you can reach out to me and I will get the question to them. That is all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Mr. O'Kelly. Okay, so next on the agenda we have, and if you have any questions, there's a hand raised. Hold on. Okay. Okay. Yes, sir, in the back.
You talked about the SSBCI.
Mm-hmm.
We've been looking at that. One requirement he mentioned is that you have to have a lender. Is there a list of lenders specifically that we can go to take a different programs?
Okay. Yeah, I was going to try to bring the microphone back there, but then I need to put it under the laptop so he can hear you. So you said the SSI? The SSBCI
has a lot of requirements there that you qualify for. But the one thing that they ask for is you have to have.
Okay, Chris, this question's for you.
We'll start over.
Yes, sorry.
The SSBCI that he talked about in this program is a good program, and they offer a lot of good things and money. And we're trying to figure out how to get the money, but then the one requirement that they have is that you have to have a lender on your team to do it. Now, where do you find a lender? Do you have lists of lenders?
Okay, Chris, you had a list for the lenders?
Thank you.
Chris, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Sorry, I didn't hear all of the question. But in terms of list of lenders, I'd have to reach out to our program contact on that one. That's not a program I work on specifically, so I'm not comfortable answering specific questions on it, but I could definitely provide the contact. It's on slide 64 there if you want to reach out directly.
Okay, slide 64. Okay, so you have my email address because you asked for it first. So email me your question. I'm sorry, because I know that'll be about the fifth time you've mentioned it, but not mentioned it, but repeated it. But email the question, and then I'll get it to Mr. O'Kelly or the appropriate staff who can answer it for you. You're welcome. Okay, one more question. Yes. Yes, I'm going to send the PowerPoints to everyone. And don't forget, we're going to do this again. Also, let me reference that we're doing this same training. We have 2 different presenters, but we're doing the same training next week in Kissimmee. So if you have the ability to travel to Kissimmee, we're going to have a full day of activities. We're going to have an expo, a community resource expo. We have about 50 vendors who are going to be there, so it's going to be community resources. After that, we have some separate meetings, but we're also doing this training again from 1:30 to 3:30. So it's the same lineup. We just have 2 different presenters from DOL. Same content, but different people presenting. So Tuesday, April the 11th. So this training is the same time, just a different location in Kissimmee. And again, you email me and I'll forward that information to you. Again, there's also the expo. Matter of fact, where's their that paper? Do you have the Kissimmee schedule? Okay, because for the expo, that's at 9:30. I think it's 9:30 to 12. And then the training is at 1:30 to 3:30. So we're trying to give people time, to go have lunch. It seats 500 people. They're ready IT-wise because it's a major. I'm getting ready to get it right here. Yes. Okay, so for the Community Expo, so I'm going to read it to you. Attendees will have the opportunity to visit tables and receive information on available services. Vendor setups to include poverty vendors, HUD program offices, legal aid, United Way, Meals on Wheels, Career Source, DCF, and others. Okay, so this is going to be open to all Osceola and Kissimmee community residents, but also in the surrounding areas. So that's from 9:30 to 12. The address is 700 Generation Point. Okay, and that's Kissimmee. The zip code is 34744. And that, nope, you don't have to register. And it's going to be in the expo hall. Okay, so that's 700 Generation Point. Okay, so that's from 9:30 to 12. And then, again, we're going to have the small disadvantaged business outreach and training from 1 to 3:30. I'm sorry, not 1:30, 1 to 3:30. And that's going to be the same address, but in the large room. There's going to be a larger room, so they're going to have the signage because we have about 5 events going on, at that same location. So they have various breakout rooms, the expo center, and things like that. So again, the capacity is for 500, so there's plenty of space. If you know someone, let them know, as well, and bring them with you. And so yeah, the expo, 9:30 to 12, and then the small disadvantaged business outreach is from 1 to 3:30. And all are welcome. Okay? That's Tuesday, April the 11th. So next week, Tuesday. Okay? And again, email me. I was checking my emails. I didn't see anything come through yet from anyone. So soon. Okay, because I wanted to kind of, let you know I'm on it. When you see me over here, I'm looking, I'm checking my emails. Because I want to acknowledge anyone. Might have a prize for the first email to come through. Look. If that's not incentive enough, right? Okay, so any more questions real quick? If not, we'll proceed to the next and final presenter for today. And her name is Ms. Dawn Wenham. She is Assistant Area Director for the Orlando Area Office for Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA. I didn't have her bio. I have some information pulled up that I pulled up about OSHA, but I'll let Ms. Wyndham explain it to you, for the purposes of time. We're way over, and I apologize, but I thank you, and I applaud you for staying behind, because I know it's a lot when you come out personally. You want the information, so thank you, and I thank you for the presenters who stayed online to make sure that we could give it to you. Okay, so thank you, Roma, for, if you can pull up Ms. Wyndham's PowerPoint, and then I'll turn it over to you. And whenever you're ready to start, we're good on this end.
Great. Good afternoon. As she said, I'm Dawn Wyndham, and I'm one of the assistant area directors who works in the OSHA Orlando area office. And I appreciate, like Deidre's already reiterated, thank you all for being here and sticking around to try to get some of this information, because I wanted to talk to you for a little bit today. I'll try to go through these slides pretty quickly given the timing, but just wanted to try to get some information out, not only employer responsibilities, but to also let you know that OSHA does have resources available, and we are interested in trying to help new and small businesses to be in compliance and understand what the requirements and obligations are under the OSHA standards. We can go to the next slide. So if you're not familiar with OSHA, it is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and we are a federal agency within the U.S. Department of Labor, and our mission is to assure, as to the extent possible, safe and healthful working conditions for working men and women by setting and enforcing standards, but also by providing training, outreach, education, and assistance. Next. So I won't go through all of the statistics with you. You can see the numbers on the slide, but in the interest of time, just suffice it to say that, OSHA recently celebrated its 50th anniversary. We began in the early 70s, and at that time, there were significant worker fatalities and injuries and illnesses occurring every day throughout America. And during that time span, we have made significant strides with efforts working with employers and other safety and health professionals, unions, labor advocates, to dramatically reduce the number of workplace injuries, illnesses, and overall worker fatalities in the country. Next. So OSHA tries to have a balanced approach. I know most people who are familiar with OSHA hears about the enforcement side of things. They see news releases where OSHA's conducted an inspection and issued citations with large penalties, but that's only one side of OSHA, and that's the enforcement side, which is a necessary part of our approach. But we also do provide outreach and compliance assistance to employers to try to help people so that they can be in compliance without having to hopefully go through that enforcement aspect. Next. So some people may be wondering, I only have a handful of employees. I'm a very small business. Am I even covered by OSHA? The short answer to that is yes. The bottom line is that most small businesses must comply with the OSHA requirements, and you may be subject to an inspection by OSHA. There are some minor exceptions, particularly within certain regulations, like with respect to record keeping. You may or may not be familiar with a term, the OSHA 300 logs, which is a record-keeping requirement to maintain records and logs of injuries and illnesses. And if you're a small employer with 10 or few employees, then you may be exempt from those types of requirements. But overall, when it comes to the general safety and health standards and providing a safe and healthful work environment, all employers are generally going to be covered by OSHA, regardless of size. Next slide. So, in case you ever wondered, well, why should we be concerned about workplace safety? There are a number of reasons, not the least of which is that it is the law. There are federal regulations and requirements that employers must comply with, but also it's good for business. Nobody wants to be a business that has a reputation for being an unsafe place to work. It makes it difficult to attract good employees and retain employees. but it also ends up ultimately costing you a lot of money. If you do end up having a workplace injury, that can have a huge financial impact on a small business. And we'll talk in another slide about OSHA's Safety Pays program, which you can look at on our website, which will help demonstrate the impact that injury in the workplace can have on your bottom line. And speaking of bottom lines, it's the right thing to do. I've never met an employer that I didn't feel like had good intentions, and, you know, I do believe that everybody wants their employees to go home safely every day, and that's what we want as well. So whenever we have the opportunity to provide information and try to help employers do the right things and implement a good safety and health program, we are more than happy to try to help you do that to avoid having these types of incidences in your workplace. Next. So I mentioned the OSHA Safety Pays program, and basically it's an online program that you can access from the www.osha.gov website. There's a specific link at the bottom of this slide, but you can use it to input specific information about your own company to generate hypothetical examples of, you know, if you had an employee fall and break an arm, what kind of a potential financial impact that could have on your business. It really helps put things into perspective and brings out some of the hidden costs that people aren't even always thinking about when it comes to having an injury in the workplace. Next. So we'll talk just a little bit briefly about some of the employer responsibilities and employee rights over the next few slides. Obviously, an employer has a responsibility under federal regulations to provide a workplace that's free from serious recognized hazards and to comply with all of OSHA's basic standards. And providing safety training required by OSHA standards in a way that workers can understand. So if you have a population of, or if your workforce speaks different languages, it's really important to ensure that you're not only providing your training in English. You want to make sure that you're training employees in a manner in which they can understand and comprehend the training that you're providing. And there's also a requirement to post the OSHA poster, which is available on our website if you don't have it. And there are requirements to report fatalities and certain injuries and to comply with those injury and illness record-keeping requirements that I mentioned early if you are subject to those record-keeping requirements. So like I said, if you have more than 10 employees and you don't fall into one of the industries that have already been identified as a low-hazard industry, because some of those industries are exempt from record-keeping as well, with the exception of the reporting requirements. Everybody is subject to the reporting, which I believe there'll be another slide coming up for that. So next. So this is an example on this slide of the OSHA poster, which provides employees with information about OSHA and their rights and employer responsibilities. Like I said, it's free and it's available online. There's a note on this slide that talks about state plans, and they may have their own versions, but if you're operating within the state of Florida, Florida is not an OSHA state plan. They are regulated by federal OSHA, so the poster that's on the website would be the poster that's applicable for you. And we have made that poster available in several different languages, which you can download and print a paper-sized version, or you can request copies through the website. Next. So I mentioned reporting, so that's an important thing to know, that if you do ever have an employee who is killed on the job or suffers a work-related hospitalization, amputation, or the loss of an eye, those are all things that have to be reported to OSHA. Any work-related fatality is required to be reported within 8 hours, and these other severe injuries that are hospitalizations must be reported within 24 hours. And the slide gives you information. You can call the local area office, which if you're in this area would most likely be the Orlando area office. Some of you may Jacksonville and Fort Lauderdale for the Florida area. We also have a 1-800-321-642, which is 321 OSHA, and that's a 24-hour hotline that you can call, or you can go online to file a report and provide the required information. Next. So workers also have some rights. They have the right to report unsafe working conditions and injuries to management or to OSHA. They can always call us, they can call the local area office, or they can go online and file a complaint about work-related hazards. If we do ever show up to do an inspection at your workplace, employees do have the right to participate in that investigation. We do employee interviews, and they have a right to participate in those. And they have a right to ask their employer for training if they feel like they're doing a job that they aren't sure how to do or feel like it's maybe not safe and they're not sure what to do. They have the right to ask for training or for PPE, which is personal protective equipment, if they need it for their job. And I think on the next slide, can we go to the next? They are protected by what we call our whistleblower protections. So there's a section of the Occupational Safety and Health Act that provides protections to employees, and we do have, OSHA has a separate unit that investigates claims of retaliation. If an employer should retaliate or take any kind of negative actions against an employee who has exercised their rights under the Act, such as filing a complaint with our office or participating in an inspection for bringing up safety and health concerns in the workplace or things like that. And this slide gives some examples of things that we would consider to be retaliatory actions that you would want to avoid. And next. So getting into some of the compliance assistance, just to give you an overview of some of the things that we do and have done as for an example, in the last fiscal year, there have been at least 24 million visitors to the OSHA website, which if you've never been to www.osha.gov, I would highly recommend that you stop by there and take a look around, because the agency has really put a lot of effort over the last few years into trying to modernize the website and improve the searchability of it and provide information that is useful and helpful to the employers and or employees looking for information on recognizing hazards, correcting hazards, and learning about what standards and requirements may apply in their workplace. We also respond to calls to the 1-800-OSHA number requesting assistance or information through the phone line or email requests for information. And the regional and area offices, like the Orlando area office, do provide outreach activities such as participating in events like this to try to get information out to the public. And the last thing on this slide is, to me, one of the best kept secrets. Unfortunately, we try to tell people so that they can take advantage of the fact that OSHA does offer small businesses assistance through a free consultation program, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a second. Next. So within most of the OSHA area offices do have a compliance assistant specialist. In our Orlando area office, that person's name is Amy Wilson. And normally she would be doing this presentation today, but as it turns out, she was double booked and she's at another event providing some information to local employers. So I stepped in to fill the gap, but we do have a person, just so that you know, and most OSHA area offices do have, we call them a CAS, Compliance Assistant Specialist, CAS, that can provide general information and point employers in the right direction, try to help you find assistance and resources, and they are available if you want to request them to participate in speaking events and things like that. Next. So some of the other opportunities that we have, I mentioned the on-site consultation program. This is a program that has been in place since the mid-70s, and it's available in all 50 states and most territories. Essentially, they have staff that are trained very much like our compliance inspectors are, and they are well-versed in identifying hazards and how to correct those hazards, and they're willing and able to come out to your place of employment to help you in evaluating your processes and procedures and identifying potential hazards and helping you get those, assisting you in what you can do to correct those hazards and be in compliance with our standards, as well as help you if you need assistance with trying to get a safety and health program started and developed. And like I mentioned, this is a free service. Another important point to make, some people are nervous about, but it is a completely confidential program. Also, they keep consultation completely separate from the enforcement side of the house. So I, on the enforcement side, never know who is using the consultation services or who has requested it or what they're requested, because that's kept entirely separate and confidential from the enforcement side. And they can also sometimes provide training and other technical assistance. So if that's something that you're interested in, I think maybe the next slide has some information on that if we can move forward. Yes, so here in Florida, the Small Business On-Site Consultation Program is operated out of the University of South Florida, and there's contact information here. So if you're interested in that, again, I can't recommend this program enough, and I hear very good things about the Florida program. So I would encourage any of you that may have an interest to at least call them and speak with them about what they might be able to do to help you in your business. Next slide. So this slide just talks about a couple of small business success stories, how they were able to reduce their injury rates and or their workers' compensation cost after they started working with their state's consultation program. So we can go to the next. Another opportunity is training and education, which there are a number of OSHA Training Institute education centers scattered across the country. You can find those by looking on our website. They offer general training. You may have heard of like the OSHA 10-hour or the OSHA 30-hour certifications, which kind of provides a broad overview of different safety and health topics that they provide the training in, and there are also Susan Harwood training grants, which are awarded each year, and different organizations who receive that grant money work to develop training materials for businesses. Next. So there are a ton of OSHA publications as well, and I would encourage you again to go to the osha.gov/publications and take a look at what's available. Can we go to the next slide? I think these next couple of slides will talk a little bit more about some of those things. There's the Small Business Handbook. This is one of the most frequently requested publications that we have. It's you can go to either one of those. The other one, this slide just gives kind of more specific examples. The first one was kind of like a broader view, small business compliance assistance, whereas there are certain standards that may be applicable to your business, like exposure to silica, or hex chrome, or different things like that. There's one for respiratory protection, and there are small entity compliance guides that are specific to the requirements of those particular standards. And they're really nice because they don't just give you the regulatory language, but they generally, the layout of these types of publications is that it will also break out the different sections of the standard, give you kind of some plain language guidance on what the regulatory language means, what you would have to do to comply with it, and they often include like self-inspection checklist or little guidelines that can help you to ensure that you are complying with those standards. Next. So there's actually a small business web page. If you want to start there, that's also a good place to start because it kind of consolidates all of the things that we've talked about today in one place that you can kind of start from. If you want to start at the OSHA small business page, just be aware that that's there as well. And as you can see, it has a link to the on-site consultation so that you can locate your local consultation program and get more information about how that program is operated, as well as some of the other cooperative programs that we didn't really have time to get into talking about today, but you can look into all of that from this page as well. Next. So OSHA Quick Takes, that's another opportunity to get more involved in safety and health and kind of more aware of what's happening. It's a free OSHA e-newsletter that goes out twice a month. And it basically just contains some of the latest news about OSHA initiatives and if new like compliance assistance products are developed, and it'll show up in the quick takes to let you know that, hey, there's this new information that's available now. And you can sign up for those if you're interested at OSHA.gov. Next. And this is our standardized government disclaimer. I'm not going to sit here and read that to you, but basically it just says that this presentation has been developed by an OSHA compliance assistant specialist. It's meant to try to assist employers and workers in improving their safety and health in the workplace. And we try to address things as much as we can, but by no means is this meant to be an overview of every single thing that would be required of an employer. Next. So again, there's the 1-800-OSHA phone number if you should ever need it. If you want to call, if you've got questions, you can also call our area office, and we're happy to answer kind of generalized questions as much as we can without triggering any type of enforcement activity, because like I said at the beginning, we're interested in trying to help employers prevent injuries and illnesses. I would much rather try to provide some assistance and give somebody some information and education on a hazard and avoid having to go out and do an accident investigation. So anytime you have questions, feel free to reach out through the 1-800 number or by calling your local area office. And like I said, most of the area offices do have a compliance assistant specialist, and oftentimes whoever answers the phone, because we do have a dedicated, what we call a duty officer, who's available during regular business hours Monday through Friday, and they can often answer a number of basic questions that employers might have as well. And I think that was the last slide, wasn't it? Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Wyndham. Are there any questions? I know you guys are tired. Oh, we have one more. Hold on one second. I'm going to take the mic.
But with our foundation, we have a pre-apprentice program, and we provide OSHA 10 for those young adults that are getting into the construction sites. But for us, it's been so difficult in cost because we have to pay for those OSHA training. Now she said that they have a grant, so I want to know how to get involved to get those grants, because the biggest cost for us is to provide them with 10 hours OSHA training.
Okay, hold on. I'm headed back to the computer. Okay.
So I couldn't quite understand all of that. If somebody there could relay to me what the question was. I couldn't quite hear well enough to.
Okay, so basically she was asking, you mentioned about grant or funding to receive the OSHA training. So she's trying to get additional information on how to access those funds. Did I sum it up? Okay.
So that was related to the Susan Harwood grant training. And if you just Google or use whatever search engine that you normally would, or you can go to the OSHA.gov website and put in the Susan Harwood grants. I think that I'm not sure when that window opens to start applying for those grants. I think that they may have already been announced for this year, but that's really more on the compliance assistance side, so it's not my area of expertise. I just know kind of in general that every year there's a window when people can put forth their ideas and submit their request for the grants, and then the grants get reviewed and eventually get awarded to different groups every year. But you should be able to find more information about that on the OSHA website if you just put in the Susan Harwood grant in the search query.
Okay, thank you so much. And also, again, Ms. Wyndham won't be there next week, but Amy Wilson, I believe that's her last name. Yes, Ms. Wilson, she actually will have a table set up at the expo. So, yes, she'll be at the expo, and then she'll be presenting on behalf of OSHA at the training event. Okay? So, yes. And please, again, I am going to schedule another training, okay? We had one more presenter, but we really just don't have time, Miss Oliver. So she works for HUD, so I'll hear it when I get back to the office, But that's okay, Miss Oliver, I'm ready for you. But I'll definitely invite them to present the information again. Hopefully OSHA, if you can't make it to Kissimmee, which I understand, then I'll definitely be looking to invite the same presenters, but again, it'll be virtual. And so Ms. Sharifi from Orange County has your email addresses, and then also if you email me. If you have any questions, any concerns, if you would like to host an event, just something that's specific to your industry, feel free to just send an email. It doesn't matter. I have a training coming up with FDIC. We work with the banks, for match funding. We have the home ownership piece. We work with the housing authorities through Section 8. We're trying to, provide assistance for those residents. And that goes to that Section 3 as well. We have so many programs, and I won't get started because I can go down the list, but we have so many. We have a hospitals program. We have single family. We have FHA who assists with mortgages, the loans. We have a home ownership, Office of Housing Counseling. So we have those workshops going on. So we have a wealth of information. People think HUD and it's just, low income Section 8, but we have so many program areas that people are not aware of. So I think for the next training, Dr. Alicia Scott Ford just kind of gave a quick, overview, and I kind of tailored her presentation because I knew, they had other obligations. But we'll get more in depth, and we'll have some of the presenters from those program offices present their information specifically to their programs. We learn the general, but I don't get into the weeds because, we have different systems, even though it's one HUD, but it's just a matter of respecting those silos. But we do come together and offer HUD information and resource sharing sessions. That was a mouthful. We've done those in various cities. We've done like maybe 3 in Orlando, and so we try to do it in other cities throughout our jurisdiction as well. But we'll get with Ms. Sharifi to see if that's something, we want to do in person again. It won't have to be on this magnitude because we can just invite the HUD presenters to come. But we'll definitely, any ideas, anything you want, let us know. Let me know at my email address. Because we do partner with a lot of the federal agencies, Social Security Administration, IRS, anything you need, that's what we're here for, okay? All right, so thank you guys. Thank you from our media crew for hanging in there with us. And all of you, I appreciate you. And it's my heart. Kudos to you guys because you came, you stayed. And so I know you're serious, and I'm very serious about being able to assist you, okay? All right, thank you, Nancy. Thank you. Okay, be safe. I know there's traffic out there. Be safe, be patient. And I'm taking off my heels, so I'm right. Well, I'll be right. I'm going shopping.